Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Dorn Geek Star Wars The Expanded Universe book talk. Last time I talked to you, we had gotten done with the Thrawn 3-book cycle. We had finished The Last Command, and now it's time to look at a new era of Star Wars. What happens after the Thrawn 3-book cycle? We are going to get into the Dark Empire comic book series. Let's go, everybody. Yes, we are talking about the Dark Empire comic book series. This series was began publishing in December of 1991, specifically on December 12th of 1991, and ran through October 20th of 1992. So when I talk about this, I know that there is a trilogy of Dark Empire comics. However, I'm only going to cover the first one because the other two, while interesting, worth reading, all that, I don't think they fit as easily into the timeline. They're not, quite frankly, they're not as well written. There's just some issues with it that I have personally, and so I'm only going to talk about the original Dark Empire series. Let's look at the timeline of this series. We are in 10 ABY. That's 10 years after the Battle of Yavin. This is, of course, where Episode 4 takes place, where Star Wars A New Hope takes place, and we're now 10 years out from that. So 10 years is a long time now. You gotta think about how much growth there's been and what we've gone through since then. When we met Luke in 0 ABY in A New Hope, he was just this kid, right? This little 19-year-old farmer kid who hadn't seen the world at all and thought that joining the Imperial Academy, the Naval Academy, was a great idea. Okay? Just to give you some more timeline ideas here, we're 6 years after Return of the Jedi already. It's been 6 years since Luke was essentially declared a Jedi. It's been 6 years since the destruction of the second Death Star, since the death of Emperor Palpatine. That's important, by the way. And it's also been 1 year after the Thrawn books. And yes, this picture is a spoiler. I try not to spoil too much in these, but this is a spoiler from a previous book series, so I don't feel too bad. If you're wondering more about that, go read the Thrawn books. I'm trying to encourage you in every way, shape, or form to read all of these books. The expanded universe needs more amazing people reading them. Let's look at the ages of our heroes and villains, the really super major ones in this series. Luke and Leia are 29 years old now. 29 years old. Luke and Leia are 10 years older than when we met them. The Skywalker twins are now 10 years older than when we met them in A New Hope. Han Solo is, of course, 10 years even older than that. He is 39 years old. We know, of course, that Leia and Han are married, have a couple kids. I know there's some problematic stuff with that, but just Han Solo's 39 now. He's kind of like, he's sort of at that peak of like experience and all of that. Now, Lando Calrissian is going to play a big part in this book, in this comic book series, and he is 41 years old. Okay. So Lando Calrissian is a couple of years older than Han Solo, which makes it a little extra creepy when he was hitting on Leia at like 21, 22. I guess she was 22. I'm going to mention these ones because they came up in the previous ones. However, I'm also going to mention that they're not going to be in this. Okay, I don't want to trick you into reading this. But Gilad Pellaeon, Captain Pellaeon, is about 60 years old in this. And he had a problematic ending. He has a lot to go through. As we closed out the Thrawn series, Mara Jade also had a lot to go through. She is now 27 years old. A lot to go through. We're not going to really deal with her. They're out there. Don't get me wrong. These two characters are out there, and it's important that we know that they're still out there, but they are not a part of these stories. And then we have Jacen and Jaina Solo, children, the twins, the Solo twins of Leia and Han. They're a part of this also, but again, they're not a huge part of this story. We know that they exist. That's about, I don't know, that's about the end of it. Major places that we are going to visit in this comic book series. Coruscant. Of course, you have to still talk about Coruscant. Coruscant is the center of everything. Now, if you remember, there was a lot of action. There was a lot of important things that happened in and around Coruscant, especially as we left the Thrawn 3-book cycle. Coruscant it's the center of the galaxy as far as governments and power are concerned. So you can't discard it, but it's going to be important to see what is Coruscant right now, because there was some stuff that went down at the end of that series, and it majorly had to do with Coruscant. We're also going to visit a place called Pinnacle Base. Pinnacle Base is going to be an interesting place to be at. You see a little bit of a tease of an image there in the slideshow, but I think you'll find that Pinnacle Base is interesting. It has some quirks to it. And then we're going to move on to Mon Cala. Mon Calamari. There's several different names for this planet, but Mon Cal sometimes. I think in this series they call it Mon Cala. Either way, home of the Mon Calamarians and the Quarren. And has always been a safe space for the rebellion. Keep that in mind. We're going to visit a planet called Biss. And this is a fairly new planet. It has been mentioned before. It's not a completely new planet. It has been mentioned, but hasn't really been like significant in really any important way up until this one. And we are finally going to get to really visit Nar Shaddaa. And Nar Shaddaa to me is Las Vegas compared to the New York that is Coruscant, okay? Or maybe the LA compared to the New York, something along those lines. And it's just, there's some cool stuff that happens there. Just, you'll see. Let's look at the major characters and relationships going on in this comic book series. A relationship between Luke and Lando. We don't often, or we haven't often yet talked about Luke and Lando's relationship when they're both in the same movies in Empire Strikes Back. They never meet except for like at the very, very end. And in Return of the Jedi, they're off on two different missions. And then, of course, there's Han and Leia Solo. Han Solo and Leia Organa Solo. These two are going to be... They have the same relationship now as they did then. That's... You're going to get to see it grow, though. You're going to get to see it start to evolve here. And some people might argue that it evolved earlier on, and it evolved during the Thrawn books, maybe even during Courtship of Princess Leia. Not really, almost at all in Truce at Bakura. However, Han is still the same Han. Leia's evolving a little bit, but you're going to get to see them grow together as a couple a little bit more in this. So, and then a relationship that goes back to freaking forever, a Skywalker and R2-D2. In particular, Luke this time, but R2 is always around, right? And it's wonderful to see this continue. And then we're going to have to turn to a more interesting relationship, and I'm giving something away, but it's not like it's going to be a secret for very long in the comic books. Anyways, the relationship between Luke Skywalker and Emperor Palpatine. The only thing we know about that relationship up until now is what happened at the end of Return of the Jedi, right? Now we're going to get to see more and different things happen. More major characters and relationships. Luke and oh no, not yet. Sorry. Luke and Palpatine still. We're going to get to see a little bit more about Palpatine, and you're going to look at the Disney fan fiction sequels, particularly the very last of the three, and you're going to go, really? Now let's look at more characters and relationships. Leia Organa Solo and the Hutts, like all of the Hutts that are left. Leia, of course, had one really big interaction with one Hutt that we saw in the movies. And we're going to see the consequences of that. We're also going to see Han Solo and Boba Fett. And you are going to love, and if you can read it in there, I guess I'm spoiling it for you, but you are going to love this. I promise you. It was so tough guy. It was so very Boba Fett the way this happened, and we're going to see Han again dealing with Boba Fett. I'm spoiling a thing there, but so what? We're also going to see Leia and a new character, Vima Dabota. Vima Dabota is a character I want to see more of. I was hoping to see more of her in The Acolyte, but of course they're not going to mix the two timelines that much. But Vima Dabota is such a... You're going to enjoy the interactions between Leia and Vima Dabota. And then Emperor Palpatine and Ashka Boda. Now, I've said that last name twice now, and there is a reason for it. You're going to find out. You can probably guess a little bit, but it's more complicated than you think. I'll say that. And then really big, maybe the most important relationship of the entire story is the relationship between Luke and Leia, between the Skywalker twins, that sibling bond that they have, and how it is going to manifest itself throughout this story. Okay. Luke and Leia, when we ended Return of the Jedi, they had just figured out that they were brother and sister, that they were twins. Now they've had 6 years to come to terms with that, and we're going to see how that pans out and how far they've come as siblings, that sort of thing. Major events that you are going to see in this comic book series and read about. The galaxy after Grand Admiral Thrawn. Make sure that you don't start this book with the pictures, or that you don't start this series with the pictures. Make sure that you read the foreword, the crawl, because you are going to find a really important thing, really important pieces of information because of that. We're going to get to see Luke at a whole new level of power. Okay. It has been 6 years since Return of the Jedi. Think about what he's gone through since then. Fighting with Vader, dealing with Palpatine, everything at the Truce at Bakura, everything at the courtship of Princess Leia, all of the things through the Thrawn series, dealing with Jorus C'baoth, all of that. And then you're going to see Luke make a decision. Okay. And it's a truly, it's a decision that only Luke can make. And really, as we look at it historically, from the history of the Jedi, even more so, it's a decision that only Luke Skywalker can make. And so we're going to get this look at Luke that you had glimpses at, and you probably always think is possible in the back of your mind, but now you're really going to get to see it, which is the cool part about this comic book series, by the way. And then we're going to see a new Imperial weapon, and a new Imperial super weapon. We've had the Death Star. We've had the second Death Star. Now the question is, we've had these super Star Destroyers, and the question is now, what could possibly be worse? What is it that the Empire could come up with that will be even more devastating? That's a little tongue-in-cheek there, but you'll see when you read the comic book series. But let's move on to major events, okay? Some more major events. Let's move on with them. We're going to get to see a new type of Alliance fighter. By the way, I said Alliance. I did not say New Republic. Very important distinction there. But we are going to get to see a new type of Alliance fighter jet. Then and I'm giving away the big one, but again, I gave it away before, and you're gonna see it right like at the beginning, basically. So the return of dead characters abounds here, and I'm giving away one of them, and I really did give away another one before. However, it does not take away from how cool these returns are, and much more well explained, by the way. We're going to see the introduction, and as far as I know, this is the absolute first time. This is the introduction of the idea of holocrons. I don't think, maybe the idea of holocrons existed before this, but not as far as I can remember or think of along the post-Jedi timeline. Okay? They just weren't a thing. We're going to find out. And yes, you actually find out in this comic book series, since I've given it away already, how Palpatine returned. It will actually be explained in this one. By the way, this explanation leads to something we're going to talk about in a future book, so it's going to be awesome. And we're going to learn about a new power that Palpatine has. You are going to be shocked at how many things were stolen from this comic book series for the last of the Disney fan fiction sequel movies. It's and done poorly. So anyways, I don't want to get too upset about it. And then we're going to have to deal with Luke's conflict. The best part, I believe, about this series is what Luke Skywalker has to go through. Okay? Throughout the movies and the books, he grows, right? But there's growth and there's evolution. And Luke is going to finally evolve in this series, really, I think, for the first time. He grows as well, but man, the way the trials and tribulations that they put Luke Skywalker through is absolutely incredible. There are a lot of things I have not mentioned. There are a lot of surprises for you left in this comic book series, and I am going to leave them that way. And I will tell you the next time that I see you, we will be talking about the first book in the Jedi Academy trilogy, Book 1, Jedi Search. I hope to see you then. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening, and may the Force be with you.